Hey, my name is Ash T, and on today's episode of The Dropouts, I have my neighbor here. His
Hello.
name is Brandon McInnis.
That's right.
And he went from, I think, computer software
Yeah.
engineer
Yeah.
to voiceover actor.
Yes.
Okay, well, this should be an interesting story. Thanks for coming
Yeah,
on the
of
show.
course. Thanks for having me. Ash.
I know how long the drive is.
so far.
Yeah.
So far. I actually was pre-med in
Yeah,
college.
you were pre-med.
And I finished all of them. And I walked out of an MCAT prep course like halfway through it.
Well, good, because MCAT sucks. I had to take that a few times. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in North Texas in a suburb of Dallas.
Okay.
And I...
Did you have brothers? Did you have sisters?
Yeah, I'm the oldest of three. And I have a younger sister and a younger brother.
Okay.
My sister's 7 years younger than me. My brother's 9 years younger than me. So
And what did your parents do?
my mom was a veterinarian, so she had a medical degree, and she was very pushy on like, you're going to be a doctor, and you're gonna. And I was
Not a
like,
veterinarian.
I'm going to be a doctor. She would have been happy with veterinarian, but I think I gravitated more towards human medicine. I was always fascinated by like my science books, and science was
you
always
liked
my
it.
best. I liked it.
All
I
right.
did like it.
What did your dad want you to do?
My dad wanted me to do whatever made me happy.
What?
I think. Yeah.
So they weren't
but
allied. in that.
he always defaulted to whatever my mom wanted. So I didn't.
We know who wore the pants in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a little terrifying, actually.
Wait, did I already ask you what he did for a living?
No,
right.
he was a contractor. He built houses and he did like remodels and repairs and stuff. But he built the house that I grew up in, and so I grew up in a family where,
Blue collar, white collar.
yeah, definitely. But both of them owned their own businesses. They were both self-employed. So
Became
my mom
white
had
collar.
her own practice,
Yeah.
and she did veterinary behavior and helped people with their animals that were like super aggressive and peeing all over the house and stuff like that. So they were very like self-motivated people, which I think came into play in my life later.
Okay.
But for most of my life growing up, I was like, I'm going to be a doctor because this is
you
what
knew
I'm supposed
that.
to do,
Oh,
I guess. But it was sort of, I didn't realize until later that I was just sort of on this default setting of like, oh, of course I'm going to go to college, and of course I'm going to do this because that's what I'm supposed to do.
How early was your mom programming you to become a doctor?
Oh gosh, probably pretty young.
Like 6, 7?
Like, I don't even remember.
Were you like talking to her at one point? You're like, I want to be an astronaut. And she goes,
I
"No,
actually
you're gonna
did
be a
say
doctor."
astronaut
Okay.
when I was a kid, yes.
How did that conversation go? You can use voices if you
I
want.
think she subtly steered me as I was younger, because I genuinely don't remember a time when I wasn't going to be a doctor. You know, and I didn't really think contrary to that until much later, until like the very end of college.
Okay, yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
So there was never a time where I know that you like voice acting, you like the art, you like actually acting, musical theater and stuff. Did you do that when you were a child?
Yes, I did. I started getting into singing when I was in early high school.
Okay.
My mom really liked musicals, and I switched schools after being in private school for 6 years, going to public school. I had no friends, and I was like, what do? I have no friends. She said, well, you're going to audition for the musical. And I was like...
Wait,
no.
do you want me to go to medical school, or do you want me to be an actor? Did you ever ask her that?
No, I knew she wanted me to be a doctor, but she was like, "You're auditioning for the musical." I was like, "I don't sing, Mom." And
Was
she's
that
like,
her dream, that she wanted to be an actress at some point?
Well, she did sing. She did sing, and she did act a little bit, but only as a hobby, which is interesting. I haven't really thought about that a lot, but that's how I got started. She was like, "You're auditioning for the musical," and so I did, and I didn't want to suck, so I tried, and I could do it, and I got cast as a lead, and it kind of went on from there.
Did you really enjoy that?
I did. I had a lot of fun doing that. I think mostly because it terrified me, because I didn't want to be bad at it.
Yeah.
You know, there's an innate fear of really sucking at something.
Yeah.
But we only grow when we push ourselves.
Right,
you know?
right. And when you were growing up, you have a lot of different interests, right? A lot of different hobbies.
Yeah.
And was there any one where you thought, I want to do this for a living? Or was it just so ingrained into your head that you were going to be a doctor that thought never came to mind?
Well, I think I was terrified to admit that I really wanted to do it, because I wanted to do all kinds of things, but I always came back to the center of, well, no, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to do this, you know. Yeah. And I was stuck. I remember when I applied to colleges, I was accepted to 2, and one was better for medicine and one was better for voice, for singing. And I thought, well, I'll major in music, I'll sing, and then I'll go to med school. And really, I realized over time that I've always pursued the things I wanted to. Subconsciously, exactly. Like in college, I didn't major in anything medically related. I started off as a voice major, and then I ended up as a Japanese major who studied abroad in Tokyo for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
With a vocal performance minor. And I did my pre-med recs. I realized, oh, wait, I've always made time for something creative. And that kept happening over and over again. I left school, or I graduated school, I should say, undergrad. And then I decided not to go to medical school, pretty late.
Wait, so third year of undergrad, you're having to apply to medical school at that point, right?
I decided I would apply
later. You wanted more time.
I wanted more time to think about it.
Okay, so while you're in college, the gears are kicking in, and they're like, I don't think I really want to do medicine anymore.
Yeah. And I didn't have that full realization until, honestly, my fall semester of my senior year.
And then were you scared to tell your mom about that?
Oh, yeah. Yes, but I did. I just took the leap because I was like, no, we're doing this. Screw it. We're going. And
when you told her that, what did she say?
She was really quiet. She said, okay, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out. And then I graduated, and then I had to figure it out.
Now you've got a voice major, and you went to Japan. What are you going to do with
totally
your life?
Marketable skills, right?
Exactly.
Super in demand.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, so many jobs.
Right.
And I actually started doing tech stuff because I sat there and I'm like, well, I need to make money. I got to start paying back my student loans. Oh boy, student loans.
Yeah.
And so then I started working as a network engineer at a mortgage company.
Random.
And I saw that.
Wait, how do you get to network engineer? Doesn't an engineer require that you have a kind of a background in computer science or something?
Yes.
All right.
I was a huge nerd growing up.
Okay.
My parents had a computer when I was 4, and I was very inquisitive. I would always ask questions. Well, why does this work this way? Why does this work? And my parents got really tired of it really fast.
Yeah.
And so they got me something that would keep me occupied, that I could figure out, right? And it was a computer. Before Windows was a thing, back when it was DOS prompts and it was all commands.
Yeah.
And so I had always been playing computer games, working with computers. I would have LAN parties with my friends when I was in middle school. A lot of StarCraft. Yeah. But so I just defaulted to a skill that I happened to have. And that turned out to be the right decision for the time because it was nice, stable income. IT jobs are cushy.
So they didn't require you to have that computer science background. It's just
it was very entry level. It was really like starting off as a help desk technician, and then I moved into a network engineering role because I was already doing it after like 3 months, and then I saw the programmer there made a lot of money, and there was only one. I'm like, this dude makes a bit because there was a spreadsheet that someone forgot to delete off of a network file, a network storage file, and
I got to see
salaries, and I went,
how much was it?
I think it was $94,000, which this was a while ago. But I remember just my eyes were really wide because I was making $35K at the time.
I know, because if I saw 94, I'd be like, whatever.
This was in Texas.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was almost 3 times what I was making at the time. And I thought, okay, I want to do that. How do I do that? And one thing led to another. I ended up going to graduate school. I got a master's over a long period of time, but in
a long period of time?
A long period of time, like
2, 3, 4 years?
It was like 3.5 years part-time. And in that time, I ended up working in Tokyo. So I was working full-time in Tokyo as a translator for a tech company and finishing grad school. Don't do that. Don't love yourself. Don't ever do that. But in Japan, when I was working at a Japanese company I was the only foreigner in a company of 150 Japanese people. And this was super Japanese, like everyone at their desks all the time, working very, very late. It was my job to translate a book. And I was like, I'm going to be the good company worker and do this to show my value. And then I'll be recognized and then I'll get a raise. No, it doesn't work that way, especially in Japan where seniority, like how long you're with the company, takes priority. But So I'm in Japan and I'm working way too much and I translate this book. We send it to the publisher in New York. They come back and they say, well, we don't like it. And I say, I'm so sorry. I just translated it. What do you want me to do? I'm trying really hard here. And they basically said, well, rewrite it. Redo all the examples. Do this. I went, our publishing deadline is in 2 weeks. And they're like, may the odds be ever in your favor. And I thought, oh boy. Okay, great. Cool. So I did that. I basically worked nonstop for 2 weeks, got it in, made the deadline, and then I got really sick. Like, really sick.
Those deadlines make you sick.
Well, I had just exhausted myself entirely.
Oh, yeah.
I put everything on the line, and I got super sick. And I woke up and I thought, I'm completely alone in this country. I was kind of delirious. I knew I had a high fever. I didn't know how high it was, but I call my workplace and I go, I'm so sorry, I'm freaking out here, I don't know what to do, can someone call me a cab? I don't even know how, like, do you go to the ER here? It hadn't occurred to me to have a plan of what to do if I got sick, right? And what they told me was, oh, I'm sorry, we're all working right now.
Holy crap.
And something broke in me. It was then that I thought, I don't want to be here anymore. Oh my gosh.
This is not my culture.
I just don't want to be here anymore, which was rough because I still had 8 months on my lease.
Oh,
so I had to stay there. But anyway, when that was all done, I stopped and I realized I am so unhappy.
As a translator,
and even though I had abandoned going to medical school, I still had followed this path of like, well, what should I do? Mm-hmm. I studied Japanese, so clearly I should go take it to the furthest possible level and go work in Japan and work at a Japanese company. And I did that, and I realized, I don't think I'm going to be happy. Yeah. I don't think this is going to fulfill me. Like, I kept seeing images of myself 10 years later, finally making the salary that I wanted to, and just being jaded and miserable and a corporate slave, essentially. Like just my entire life would revolve around this. And I went, I have to leave. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to leave. So I come back. I
broke the lease. Or did you
I did not. I
full
stayed.
8 months.
I stayed, but I started making other plans.
Oh, got it.
Right.
Yeah.
And my fiance that I've been with for it's just been 9 years, who is an actor and plays a huge role in where I am today. We were friends before I moved to Japan, and we weren't together when I moved to Japan, and we kind of started dating long distance. And I told him, I was like, I have to leave. I have to come back. I don't know. And I did. And I finished grad school and I started working as an engineer. And I thought, oh, well, I'm an engineer now. I did the thing. I finally reached the level of, like income that I wanted to, and everything seemed well and good.
Wait, hang on. You reached the income. Was this after Japan?
Yes, after Japan.
Okay, so you came back to this country and you were pursuing a engineering job, right?
Yes. All right.
This
is a long walk, but it's relevant. I promise.
Okay.
Yeah, I asked my boss, because when I worked in Japan, I was also the CEO's private interpreter. So he would go all over the world and do crazy things like, let's sponsor a hackathon in Sweden. Okay. It's next week. Okay. Sure, let's go.
Fascinating.
And I asked him one time after there had been some drinks, because that's how things happen in Japan. I said,
Sake.
What would it take to make like $80K? And he laughed at me and he said, you would need to work at my company for 10 years.
Oh my God.
And have a master's degree. And I was like, well, I'm working on the master's degree, but 10 years is a long time. For $80K? Ooh. Okay. And I was like, okay, this is it. I need to leave. I need to go. Well, 18 months later, I was making that, which was great as an engineer.
He lied to you.
Well, no, not in Japan.
Okay,
and
as an engineer.
I came back to Texas and I worked there.
You're like, no, translator's not going to work. This job path is not for me. Let's try engineering.
Right.
Okay.
And it was fine. It was good. The entire time I'm watching my now fiance have this voiceover career, and that's what he did. And I thought, that's not me. He's the actor. I'm the logical, rational person.
But you had done musical theater in the past, so you are an actor, right?
Yes, but I didn't think of myself as one.
You didn't think that you could make money from it?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
No. And then my brother got into musical theater, like professional musical theater in Dallas, and encouraged me to join him, and I did. And so then I was doing professional musical theater, but there's this mental, like how I identified myself was engineer. Right. Maybe a little translator.
Okay.
I enjoyed singing on the side, doing this little acting thing on the side.
Where does the identity crisis come from? Not really an identity crisis, but more of this is what my identity is. Do you think that's like you want to show your mom that you are a professional?
I think so.
Okay.
I think there's always been this drive that was instilled in us of like, well, if you're not spinning 1,000 plates, then you're not doing enough. You know, but you need to have some sort of core, very buttoned up, rigid plan of success that must always at all times be working.
Okay.
And
so that's what kind of kept you in engineering for a while.
Yeah.
How long were you in that?
8 years.
7, 8 years. All right.
7, 8 years. Now, maybe a year and a half, 2 years into it, I started doing voiceover.
Oh, okay.
So I juggled both careers for a while.
Gotcha.
And almost the entire time I continued to think of myself only as an engineer.
How did you get your first voiceover job? Like, what was that like? Because you're saying, I don't think I could ever do this, acting.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, my fiance Michael, who you're about to interview, you will interview, had been doing voiceover, I think, for 12, 15 years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in Dallas, there is a company called Funimation, or was Funimation, now it's Crunchyroll, that dubs anime, a Japanese animation into English. So like Dragon Balls, things like that, One Piece. And he was one of their I want to say star players, but like heavy hitters, core team. And so I was around that space. I was around those creatives. And I think they had a big influence on me because I saw that I love being around them. I was like, these people are so interesting.
But also, isn't it interesting that it's anime, it's Japanese anime? Like, how did your path become, you were a translator in Japan, and now you're in the anime space?
It's weird how the world works when you just go out there and
you live life,
try new things. That's the secret. You live life, you go do things, and weirdly, you gravitate to places that
fit your skill set.
Yes. I still don't know. Yeah. Like, I met my fiance at an anime convention because I used to be flown to anime conventions to interpret for Japanese metal bands that would be booked for these conventions.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who he was, and he was a voice actor, and he was a guest, and we hit it off. But, and who knew that company that dubbed anime was in the same city that I grew up in and just lived in? I didn't plan that.
Yeah.
Just, so anyway, I'm around these people with Michael, and one of them calls me one time. His name was Ian Sinclair. He's a very prolific voice actor and director. He was directing a show called Black Butler at the time, which is one of Michael's star roles. He's the main character. He's Black Butler. And the translators at Funimation were having trouble with a dialect of one character in the show for this upcoming season. He said, Brandon, can you look at it? We just need some help with this dialect. I was like, okay. So I looked at it. It's clearly a dialect, and it's not unintelligible. It's not completely impenetrable, but I thought this is clearly a dialect. Did some research, found the answer on Yahoo Answers Japan, weirdly, which was very much in use and still is in use today, kind of like Quora is in the West. And I said, well, here you go. this is a performer's dialect and came out of Kyoto in the mid 1800s. Here you go. And he said, oh my gosh, this is so helpful. Great. He said, do you want to come in and like voice the cats in the show? Just
to try it
That's
out.
it. Yeah. And I thought, sure, whatever. This will be great. And while we're in the booth, Ian goes, Brandon, do you have a British dialect? I went, yes, Ian, I have a little bit of one. And he said, perfect, great, excellent.
How'd you get the British dialect?
A good question. I've never really thought about it.
Was it just through watching TV? You just randomly acquired it?
From watching TV, and also when I was singing. I spent a summer in Britain, in Europe, and went around. We were in the UK a bit, and I just liked copying voices, and I've always been very interested about.
Oh, you have
dialect.
Enjoyed copying voice. Okay, we skipped that part.
We skipped that part. But again, when you're a kid and you're like just mimicking funny voices on TV, you don't think about it. You're not like, this is a career.
Yeah.
No,
you're just doing it for fun.
Yeah, it doesn't. And fun stuff shouldn't be work.
Yeah.
Work is medicine and technology and this and that, right? It's the mindset.
So you have been copying voices for a long part of your career, and this is what's helped you in your current career, right?
Yes.
Just for fun.
And I wouldn't say I'm like, when I say copying voices, I've really enjoyed dialects and things like that. And I suppose I have copied voices as a kid, but even now it's hard for me to identify, oh yes, I copy voices. I'm a voice actor. It's weird how that identity crisis sort of stays with you.
Yeah.
You know, but yes. So, and then that was my first voiceover gig.
Doing cats. And dialects, English dialects. Yeah.
And I didn't have another voiceover gig for about a year when another director called me in because she needed singers on a project. And I thought, okay. And again, these are people that I knew. So I was like, sure, Caitlin, of course. Yeah, whatever you need. You're my friend. But
it's so fascinating. Wait, you're not even working in this space. You're an engineer. They're just your friends. And then just like, hey, do you have this voice?
But I was around Michael the entire time.
That's right.
I taught myself how to produce music just as a hobby as well. And that came into play because when we moved in together, he was like, oh, I got to find somewhere to record my auditions. And I went, I can do that. I mean, I haven't done that before, but I've recorded music. I've produced music as a hobby. But you just need like a nice, clear sound, and it needs to be crisp. And he's like, yeah. And so now I'm around a professional voice actor who's recording his auditions.
And he can't do that himself?
He could, but also we're together and I wanted to be, part of his life and that's how I contributed, I was like, and I love computers, right? So I was like, yeah, let me do it. Let me figure this out. This is neat.
Okay.
But it wasn't something I planned on learning from. I just did it. I just wanted to do it. And it's weird how things we try out or things we do for fun can help us in the future.
Yeah.
I think keeping an open mind and trying new things is helpful in so many ways that I can't even quantify. But yeah, so then that happened, and I continued working as an engineer, paid off a whole bunch of student debt, but I was very aggressive about paying that off.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, well, if I ever want to do something crazy and creative, I'd probably need to have my debt out of the way. Maybe that might be helpful. But I was really aggressive about that, and I paid it off. And
subconsciously, you were already planning your life.
I think so. I think there's like a little like actor gremlin in my head that's like, I will find a way, and it's weird. But and then, so I'm working. I'm juggling this job, my engineering job. I started working at a startup. I was employee number 7, and then the company grew to 75 people. And many days I'd wake up, commute downtown in Dallas, work for like 4 or 5 hours, leave because I had a lot of flexibility. I used my seniority at the company because I built some stuff that kind of became integral to the company later being sold successfully. It was acquired successfully. But instead of leveraging for like giant salary hikes, I would leverage for flexibility. And so they would say, oh, you need to take off for 3 hours for a voiceover session? Sure, just make up the time later, Brandon. And I went, okay. So I'd work for 3-4 hours, get in my car, drive to Funimation, record for 2 to 3 hours, and then either drive back to the building or drive home and finish my work for the day.
And when you were comparing voiceover session to your work at engineering, was there a difference in your happiness? Am I leading the question?
Well, yes, but it's interesting. At the time, I felt like it scratched 2 different itches, because I won't say that I hated every aspect of engineering, because I didn't, and I don't. I think it was more like the corporate grind, having every single day be like, well, 8 hours of your day needs to be this, and
you were slowly chipping away at that anyway.
Yeah, it was just
by saying, I want a more flexible job.
The gremlin, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And also, I felt like they're completely different skill sets, left brain, right brain, right? So when I go to the voiceover studio, I'm refreshed. I'm ready. My reserves aren't done. And then I finish and go back to work, and I felt like I was refreshed because I hadn't used that part of my brain as much. And then, let's see what happened. And that was probably like 100 roles over 5-6 years.
Wow.
Then pandemic, and some of our friends moved to LA. And we stop and look at each other and we go, should we move to LA? Because there had been a few studios in LA that had reached out to us because we had a home booth, and not all LA voice actors had home booths because space is at a premium here.
Right.
And they reached out to us and said, hey, can you submit an audition, do whatever? We said, okay. So we start working with these LA studios, and we think, well, this isn't going to be forever.
Yeah.
At some point, the pandemic will be over.
Right.
At some point, they're going to go back to in-house recording. We don't want to waste those connections. Let's move to LA. Let's try this.
Yeah.
And so we did.
But what about your job in Dallas?
So here's the thing. We were already fully remote. Software engineering is one of those things that can completely be done remotely, as long as you have a good infrastructure and a good team. And so I was already remote. I talked to my boss and said, hey, if I move to LA, is that going to cause a problem? He said, no. Honestly, it's probably the only way you're going to be able to stay remote is if you move away.
Wow.
And I said, okay. So we did, but I still didn't think I would be a full-time actor. That was not, I was like, well, maybe if something crazy happens. But I thought, this will be good for Michael's career. This will be great for Michael's career. And we went, and I continued working.
But the gremlin was like, but it's good for mine.
Perhaps. I'm not going to deny that. But we went, and things went well. We got representation here in LA. We start reading for like the auditions are crazy here compared to
what you can get in Dallas.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. LA is an epicenter of creative work.
Yeah.
And after work was good, and then I always thought to myself, I can't leave my job. My team needs me because I built most of this system, and I'm the guy. I'm the dude who everyone has to come to fix things. And the system I built was an accounting system.
So you didn't want to leave because you felt like people depended on you, or because
I kept getting promoted. So I started off as a junior engineer, and by the time I left, I had gone through the ranks of senior engineer to a position called architect, which is just like
the Matrix.
Yes, kind of, except more mentoring involved, more helping other engineers.
Yeah. But you said you have this itch for the left side, so why would you want to leave that just to do all creative work?
Good question. I realized as time went on that the thing that is most fulfilling to me when it comes to work is connection, being with other people. I learned that what fulfilled me the most about my engineering job was not coding. It was working on a team with people and helping people. My favorite thing was when an engineer would message me just completely overwhelmed or crying or whatever, saying, I've been working on this for 3 days and I don't have anything done and it's not working and I don't know what to do. And I'd be like, I I got you. I got you. Let me hop on a call with you. I don't care if we're up till 2 a.m. If I'm doing it with someone, it doesn't feel like work. And I realized that that's what I felt when I was in the booth working with a director and an engineer, was I was with people.
Yeah.
And then I stopped and thought, oh, wow, maybe being behind my laptop for 8 hours a day is not the way to fulfillment, is not the way to happiness. You know, and there was an opportunity there of like, wow, there's enough work for me to, I think, sustain this. I think to be completely self-sufficient on this if I hit it hard. And once I went on vacation for like a week and a half and my team didn't message me, everything was okay. They didn't need me to be all right. Then the wheels started turning. And I went, ooh, I'm in LA and there's enough work to maybe make this work. Now's the time.
What is enough work? Like, what type of roles are you getting? Can you voice some of these characters? Would we have ever heard of them?
Oh,
I'm leading you on to do
sure,
some voices.
Sure. Probably one of my most known roles is from a show called My Hero Academia, which has had several theatrical releases in theaters for the movies and whatnot. And I voice a character named Sir Nighteye, who is the ex-sidekick of one of the main characters named All Might, right? And so they go way back. And this character is seen as a mentoring figure. And I found out I was cast because I had been an engineer, and he's very logical. And I was like, oh, that's good casting, Colleen. Nice. Yeah. So when he talks, it's down here, and it's very... to get into character, I would think about Excel spreadsheets and tax laws and things like that. But yes, that's Sir Nighteye.
Okay, Sir Nighteye. Who else you got?
What else do I have? There's another show called Dr. Stone, and the character I play in that is Gen, who is a TV personality. And he's very kind of flamboyant and all over the place. And he interacts with the main character, Senku, and he's like, oh, really? Is that what we're going to do? Oh, okay, that's cute. Nice. All right.
Did you have any Japanese characters that you had to do? I mean, you're in the anime space.
No, actually.
Okay, I've never had to do that.
No.
Could you voice a Japanese accent if you needed to?
I could.
You don't want to.
It's completely useless in this day and age.
Yeah, I know.
But I will say, even though I can't use my Japanese skills in VoiceOver right now, it's great with clients. There are a lot of Japanese game clients that I've worked with that will get on the call, and sometimes they have an interpreter, and we don't need the interpreter, which is a nice little flex, you know. But yeah, so it's weird. I never thought my Japanese skills would be used in anime.
Exactly.
And the way we dub anime is we actually preview all of the lines in Japanese first.
Oh, interesting.
So I get to hear the original Japanese voice actor's performance, and I use that to inform my own thing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But at a certain point, you realize there's enough body of work here then, as a voice over actor, to completely take over the software business.
Yeah. And that was scary. That was really scary because I ended up really not liking the juggling aspect of both because I felt like I couldn't really give my all to either one.
Yeah.
And I had so much fun with the voiceover. I really enjoyed it. I loved the newness of like a new character, a new project, new this. You know, the auditions are exciting. You have to get used to a very high rejection rate, as you know. Yeah. And in voiceover, I think you can do more auditions than you can in on camera because you have to memorize on camera scripts. There's a lot of investment with that. Right. But with voiceover, I can knock out an audition in 15 minutes.
Oh wow!
You know, granted, sometimes there are a lot of auditions, and you're like, okay, I have like 8 auditions in one day, but that's fine. But yeah, so it became. I was able to see a path forward that was creative, which was scary. It was terrifying to me, but I took the leap.
Why was it terrifying?
I'm a risk-averse person.
Oh, okay.
I'm a very risk-averse person. luckily, after I paid off my student loans, I got in the habit of just putting away money. And so I had a little emergency fund, which was like, okay, it took me creating an emergency fund of a year of expenses.
Okay.
Like, if everything tanked, if I didn't get any work for a whole year, would I be okay?
Yeah.
And once I passed that threshold, I was like, okay, well, I could figure something out in a year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I allowed myself the possibility of success in my own head.
Interesting.
I also had an animation coach, Richard Horvitz, who's the voice of Invader Zim, who would constantly tell me, leap and the net will appear.
I know, I've heard that too.
And I hated it. I hated it so much because I was like, you don't know that. You don't know. What if no net appears and you hit the ground and you're just like a bag of viscera, right? You're dead. You're dead. You're no more life if there's no net. But I allowed myself to, imagine within the realm of possibility that maybe I could be successful at this. And I did it. And
it's working out.
Still okay.
Yeah.
14 months later, we're still okay.
Congratulations.
It was relatively new. Thank you. But it's still going. Fingers crossed. But it has been an adjustment. I think the most difficult thing for me has been the lack of structure.
Yep.
Working a corporate job is very structured.
Yeah.
You have these tasks. We need to finish these things by this time.
Absolutely.
And I also worked hand in hand with a project manager. So I could be like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Tell me, Danielle, please. And of course, Danielle knows all. And she'd be like, you're doing this. Thank you. But there's none of that. I think it's been kind of difficult for me to
figure out what you're going to do for the day.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, same. I have the same problem.
I actually recently, with Michael, started implementing stand-ups. Because that's what I did in the software world. That's what I know is like, okay, well, we have daily stand-ups on what we're going to try to do today. And that has been helpful for me. But it's a shift, right? It's a very strange sort of paradigm shift of I'm in charge of my own life. That's a lot of responsibility, Yeah.
Yeah, we're not kids anymore.
I know.
And also I would say though that you have some interesting social media as well that you've started at some point along the way. TikTok, Instagram, like how many followers do you have on TikTok?
I think I'm up to 612,000.
And what are you famous for?
Oh boy. Well, during the oh gosh. Okay, so
just give us the impression.
Which the voicemails?
Voices. So are you famous for voicemails?
I'm famous for a few different things. One of them is voicemails.
And what does the
TikTok.
voicemail sound like? Give us a few of those, or one of them, your favorite.
The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Please try again later. Thank you. Goodbye. I don't know. I'm
going to have to get you to put that on my voicemail later.
I was just doing random videos over the pandemic and just having fun, and it kind of blew up. And yeah.
That probably results in more work as a voiceover actor, right?
Yes, it does, because people see you and sometimes they reach out to your agent, and you never know who's watching on TikTok.
Right.
But I didn't think about that. I was just having fun.
Yeah.
And again, it's weird how stuff like that works.
Well, it's really interesting to see your progression from pre-med to software engineer to voiceover actor of all things. Like when I think of computer engineers, I don't ever think that person's going to be a voiceover actor one day.
No.
Because they're very analytical, they use the analytical mind. But it's so interesting to me how powerful the human brain is and how much we can change over time.
Yeah. Well, and I also find that the things I've done in the past help me as a voice actor. Like when I'm in session and the engineer says, "Ooh, could you back up from the mic a little bit?" My brain immediately goes, my plosives are probably a little too strong. My sibilants are too strong, things like that. And like sometimes I'm on calls with game developers because I'll be working on a video game and there's like a character and we'll start talking about things and we can just veer off into the tech side of things, which is cool. But yeah, it's weird. I feel like I understand certain things because of my analytical background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like wish you'd gotten into voiceover acting sooner, or do you feel like the path that you've taken is fine?
I mean, I suppose I could have started it sooner, and I probably would have been happy or more creatively fulfilled sooner. But I'm happy with the path that things have taken, because I think the biggest blocker I have is myself, and I feel like a black box sometimes. I'm like, hello, how does this work? Why didn't you do this sooner? Or, I mean, why do you feel this way about certain things? And I think it's because when I was a kid, I just was on autopilot. I was like, oh, clearly I'm doing this. I didn't really stop and reflect and challenge what was said in front of me until much later in life.
So over the course of this, decade or two, what do you feel like your greatest challenges were, and what do you feel like you wish you could have told yourself earlier?
Ooh, I wish I could have told myself that the most consequential voice in your head is your own. Because at the end of the day, you are the one you have to spend the most time with. You are the one whose treatment of yourself is going to affect you the most. And so I think it's very important to be honest with yourself. And sometimes that means really sitting or experiencing extreme unhappiness so that your voice is the only one blaring out at you, this is unacceptable, this is not. And it took me like going to Japan and getting really sick and being super miserable for me to realize that. I had to fly to the other side of the world and, work and in a language that wasn't even my own to learn that. And I'm still learning things about myself. But now I know to pay more attention to myself and that voice and a little gremlin, right? than I have in the past.
Okay. Well, that's a great way to end. I almost cried. It's not for hearing that. I always like to tell people that you should believe in yourself, and I believe in you, and so does Brandon. So go out and do the thing that you want to do.
Do it. Do it.